Hi guys, it's Louis, your producer and host here at Uncharted Parenting. Thank you for all the support you have given us thus far in Season 2 of Uncharted Parenting. We've got a really special interview for you coming direct to you this week. That is with Amelia Adams, the 60 Minutes presenter on Channel 9, a world-renowned journalist who's had an incredible career in journalism and now is that 60 Minutes presenter on Channel 9 that hits your screens every single weekend. We chatted through all things, how she manages a busy lifestyle, a busy recording schedule, and how she manages being a solo parent as well as being a co-parent as well. As we know, there is a lot more blended families out there in today's society, and we talk through all things and how she navigates that and how she navigated a busy career throughout her time as a Middle Eastern correspondent, a US correspondent, and also a European correspondent based in London for a number of years as well while her kids were young. We think you'll really enjoy this one, so stay tuned and listen in. Amelia, thank you so much for joining us today on Uncharted Parenting. I was actually really excited when I was able to get in touch with you and you actually responded. I had that phone conversation with you. I was really excited to get you on here and have a conversation with you about your career and about how you balance it all with being a mum of two and how you're navigating solo parenting and also co-parenting now as well. And I think there are probably a lot of people, Amelia, that don't know who you are, obviously with your role in the media with 60 Minutes with Channel 9. But I actually just really want to applaud you for jumping on here. You've got an incredibly busy schedule, and thank you for being so open and honest with me, even just on our phone conversation. But thank you for being willing to jump on and share some of your journey with our audience here at Uncharted Parenting. And I think that's one thing, in my opinion, that I think sometimes the public sometimes forget, that the people that they're seeing on their screens have a life beyond that. It's not just what they're seeing on their screens. So I just wanted to take this first little moment, maybe if you could take us a little bit through your journey, your career journey, and sort of what role you're doing now and how that's working for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, thanks for having me on. And I responded because I don't think any of us have got this parenting thing nailed, right? Like I'm constantly reading articles and clicking on things and listening to podcasts because ultimately, none of us were born parents. Like we're all kind of trying to do the best we can. So when I saw your message pop up and then your podcast, I was like, oh, this is great. Like I'm always looking for tips as well. So pleased to be here. I've been in TV for about nearly 25 years. And I started off doing all the sort of crazy night shift at Sky News and 7 News and went to Channel 10 in Queensland for a while and cut my teeth on the road there. Got into sort of some fill-in presenting, but I really always wanted to be a foreign correspondent. I always wanted to be on 60 Minutes. And eventually when my daughter was 1 and my son was 4, so they are 9 and 12 now. So when they were very little, I got the job that I'd kind of always wanted, which was a foreign bureau. So the Europe and Middle East correspondent for 9 News, and headed over to be based in London for that job for a couple of years. And from there, we went on to America to be based in LA for a few years. It was a pretty crazy time geopolitically. It was the last year of Trump's first presidency, lots of civil unrests and rallies and riots, and then ultimately an insurrection and political upheaval, and a couple of trips to the Middle East in there as well, and then war in the Ukraine. So certainly got around the world. And then at the end of that year, the year the war started, 2022, I got my ultimate job, which was to be a correspondent for 60 Minutes, and I've been back in Sydney. Based in Sydney, doing this job since the end of 2022.
Awesome. Fantastic. Well, your job's taken you to different corners of the world. And I've got heaps of questions for you as we go through this interview today, just and to dive into all of that you just mentioned. And I think that our audience will definitely be keen to hear some of the things that you're going to say about how you manage that as a mum. Especially I feel that my kids now as well, they're 5 and almost 2. And I'm thinking about, if I was to move country now, it would be a lot for them to to have to
It's a lot.
take on.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm excited to dive into that with you in a minute. But like you mentioned, Amelia, your journey has taken you to lots of different places around the world, um, war zones, elections, global crisis. But how did becoming a mum maybe redefine the boundaries for you, or really shift those assignments, both emotionally and also professionally, in how you decided to take those things on?
Yeah, it's difficult. I mean, first up, I would say that becoming a parent shifted my worldview as it does, I think, for most people in terms of how you see the world,
Mm.
your sense of empathy, your sense of, I mean, I covered so many news stories as a journalist of, kids who died in tragic ways and sudden accidents and illnesses
Mm.
and all sorts of things and natural disasters. And I think as soon as I had my own, first child, the way I felt in those, crime scenes or natural disaster scenes or in those events was
Mm.
different because suddenly I was thinking, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
what if it was my baby?
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
shifted the way I view the world, which probably isn't a bad thing as a journalist, I
Mm.
think, and the way you approach people and approach stories. And yes, it did have a big impact on the assignments that I was given, and it was a big decision to take up that London bureau because, as I
Yeah.
said, we had a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old. Kids are very adaptable, I find, and very resilient.
Yeah. Yes,
And
they
I
can be.
think probably was easier. In some ways, it was easier to take them before they kind of knew what was happening.
Yeah.
They weren't in school and they didn't have those sorts of their own lives in a way,
Yeah.
as they
Yeah.
do now. Um, but it was harder because, we had one obviously in nappies and
Yeah.
naps and all of the things that go go with
Yeah.
toddlers.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was difficult. And I guess taking on a job like that, you have to you have to prioritize that job. That job comes first. If you get a phone call in the middle of the night, or if a war breaks out, or if there's a shooting, whatever, you have to know that you're going to get up and go. So that's a
Yeah.
that's a big decision to make as a mum or as a parent. And for that to be possible, we had to have one parent at home. Um, so my husband, we now divorced. My ex-husband was
Yeah.
like the stay-at-home dad, and that's kind of how we managed it. So they had a constant,
Yeah.
and I was able to go out and do those jobs, and that was, obviously I was the breadwinner as well, and he was at home, sort of managing the kids and stuff, which is no small task, as we know.
No. 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 I think about my wife all the time. I think she has a harder job than what I do. So
Yeah, and in a foreign country as well,
yeah.
pretty tough going.
Yeah. Yeah. No. I'd be interested. Just quickly, it's not one of my questions I have here for you, but how do you think that they'd cope with that now? Like if they were at the ages that they're at now?
Yeah, I mean, look, they are resilient and they've lived in different countries and they've changed schools, as my son reminds me, like 5 times because he went to
Yeah, as they
school
do.
in London and he went to 2 different schools in LA. And then anyway, he said to me, once I start high school, which is next year, please, please, can I not change schools again?
Yeah.
Which
Don't
kind of
change jobs, mum, please.
yeah, this has had an impact on you. I think they'd be okay, but it would be much harder because they've got really firmly entrenched friend groups, um,
Yeah.
sporting clubs and those sorts of things, and because they've had that disruption, my son especially is like, I'm never moving again.
Yeah. No, it is funny that you talk about that because you said your daughter's 9, is that right?
She's 9, yeah.
Yeah. So when I was 9, my parents made the decision to move here to Australia,
Oh, wow.
from the UK, and obviously there's not really a language barrier or anything like that, but it was still hard. Like I still remember
Culture
thinking,
shock. It's a
from
huge
being
culture
annoyed at my mum because she was, taking me away from my sport and stuff like that. And
Yes.
but ultimately, it was the right decision, and well, I like to think it was anyway. So no, yeah, thank you for taking us through that. And I think so. You mentioned that you spent time in Europe as a European correspondent and Middle Eastern correspondent, but also in the US as well. Um, so how did you? So something that we probably hear about in parenting is this word stability, and we always want our kids to have stability and connection. But how did you manage that as you're sort of navigating, those moves, and obviously
Mm.
having to take off in the middle of the night sometimes as well, at the drop of a hat? How did you sort of manage that stability and that connection with them?
Um, with great difficulty, if I'm honest.
Yep.
The constant stable was that they had their dad at home. So
Yep.
he stayed home and if they got up in the morning and mum had left in the middle of the night, dad was there and their routine wouldn't change. So I think that was really important.
Yeah.
My youngest child, we had trouble because I was the main carer. I was the primary carer here in Sydney, and my husband, my former husband, traveled a lot. So when the kids were little, he traveled for weeks on end for his job. Suddenly we moved to London and mum's going. So it was like a
Yeah.
shift of primary carer.
Yeah.
And my daughter, who is just the best, but has always been difficult.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
She's a big personality, and I swear from the day she was born, she was just like, she from the age of 1, she couldn't talk when we moved to
Yeah.
London. She was a baby essentially. She had, I think separation anxiety issues. And that was difficult to manage. And for example, I started getting sent away and I would call home every night to talk to the kids. And for my son, who was 4, that was great. And, he doesn't know where in the world I am or what I'm covering. He just wanted to tell me about his day or whatever. But for my daughter, we discovered every time we'd have a conversation and hang up from FaceTime, she would absolutely lose it. She would melt down and she would act out. So we actually made the decision that when I went on those trips, which was my entire job, that I would not call and I would not talk to the kids, which was very hard for me because I'm in these awful situations and I'm desperately missing my family. And I really just wanted to see them and say goodnight. But we made the decision that it was better for her if when I went away, I didn't touch base all the time. And then I'd come back and she was like, oh, mama, and she was happy.
So excited to see.
Yeah. So just little decisions like that, which were sort of trial and error, but they were pretty tricky. And I guess just, instilling in them from that very young age that this is mum's job and, mum's paying the bills and that's important too. And this is just the way it is. And when I was home, having those like constant connections with them, like I would do bedtime and not unlike my job now, I have a bit more autonomy over my time. Like when I'm not here, I'm not here and it's tough. But when I am here, today, for example, I'm working from home. I just dropped my kids at school this afternoon. I'm going to do a band to Stedford and footy training. So I can do some of those things probably a lot more than parents, in the corporate world can.
Yeah. Yeah.
The downside is next week, I think I'm in 2 or 3 different cities and luckily they're used to that by now. But that was definitely a process. I think just being present when I'm home, attending as many things as I possibly can. And that's a juggle, like any parent listening will know. I can remember being, at Westminster, like at, UK Parliament covering Brexit and racing in a taxi to get to my son's school. Like I would have been there all overnight because, remembering that if you work for an Australian network, in Europe, the time is upside down. So you're doing today's show late at night. It's horrible. Your whole world is literally topsy-turvy. So I'd have been there from 4 a.m. doing 6 p.m. news in Sydney, doing the evening news here, and then racing to, school for a nativity concert, a Christmas concert. My son had a party, and then racing back to Parliament for the next vote. So, just the juggling that every parent has to do, but just on a slightly bizarre scale. You're kind of standing in British Parliament one minute and then trying to get to a musical play the next.
Sometimes it's hard to take those different hats off, isn't it? It's just, that constant shift between two worlds. But also, I think one thing as you were talking then, Amelia, I was thinking like a lot of parents have support networks around. So, I'm talking about grandparents and friends, aunties, uncles, things like that. How did you navigate that? Because obviously when you were over there, yes, you had the constant with your partner, with your husband being at home with the kids, but it would have been hard for you guys to get time to yourselves and also, to have your own time as well outside of work because you didn't have those supports.
Yeah, it definitely put a strain on the marriage without doubt. I think once we got to the US, it got easier because we had a bigger bureau, we had a bigger team. And so there were, there are a couple of other correspondents and a couple of other cameramen, and the cameramen had beautiful partners who are now like my best girlfriends. And we would just have everyone over to our house. And when I was traveling, the cameramen's wives would come and hang out with my husband and my kids, and they would babysit. Everyone would just pitch in and be that village that you're talking about, which is so critical.
Yeah. No, yeah, absolutely. And I think as well, when you were talking about your role, I was thinking about there's been times in my career journey where I've had to be away from the kids and things like that as well. And I have this good old working parent guilt, or the guilt that sort of well up inside you. And I think as you were talking about when you made that decision to not call your daughter because it was best for her, that would have been hard, and you probably have these guilty feelings. How have you learned to maybe reframe that over the years, or how to manage that as well?
Yeah, I think it's one of the greatest challenges. We all have it. And, ultimately kids their world is small, right? The smaller they are, the smaller their world is. So they're inherently selfish, not in a vindictive way. It's
They know
just
where
like
they are.
one is them and their nuclear family. So, if something disappoints them or stresses them, as you know all too well, or, one of you's not there, you're going to know about it. And that's what I found with my daughter. And as I said, I guess from early on, it was just instilling them that this is what we, did as a family, and this is what worked for us at that time. Dad's here, and, mum's out working, and someone has to work also because that, that pays the bill. I think as well, reframing it in my own head, which is probably something I've done more since I've been back from overseas, to be honest. Just in the last couple of years, I've done work on that, because ultimately I don't think the mum guilt, as it's called, but, parent guilt, serves anyone. It doesn't serve me, because I just feel like crap all the time. I went through a few months last year where I was like, I am failing everyone. All I do is let people down. All I do is underperform in both jobs. I really was being very hard on myself. And that kind of doesn't serve anyone either. So I've had to reframe it as this is the job that I've achieved, but also that I've chosen. And so I need to do the best that I can at it. But also my children will always be my priority. Ultimately, I'm at a point in my career where if any job doesn't work for my family, I will walk away and do something else. But it's tricky. I mean, my daughter, as I said to you, she's 9 years old, and only must have been last month, because it was around the time of the Easter hat parade. And she said to me, "You coming to the Easter hat parade?" And I'm thinking, my God, this thing is on at 2:15 on a Wednesday afternoon. Why did they do this to parents?
Yeah,
I'll be there. She goes, "Because you didn't come when I was in year 2, you didn't come to the Easter hat parade on a Thursday." Details. She's telling me about a 15-minute event that I missed in 2023.
She's committed that one to memory.
This is imagine the guilt. So I'm thinking, I have to move heaven and earth to be at this Easter hat parade, and thank goodness I could be there.
The global crisis, or the election, or whatever it was at the time, that can wait.
I had to wait.
Yeah, I had to be there. No, look, I think you spoke as well, Amelia, about how routines helped you with your, especially as you were with your job, with it being so having to run off and things like that. Things happen, the world happens. So what practical systems, routines, maybe it's changed for you now over time, but maybe what routines or rituals now do you have in place that help your family stay connected, whether you're on the road or even if you're at home?
Yeah. So first of all, we have constant. So the bottom line is that the kids' routine and environment doesn't change. They live here with me and my partner. My mum lives about 5 streets, five houses down the road, literally on the same street. And we have a fantastic nanny babysitter. So, for example, last week and next week, I'll be traveling a lot, and they know that even when I'm not here, my partner gets them up and gets them off to school. They'll be picked up by the nanny or their nanny, grandma. They'll get to all our activities. Just having that constant for them. This is your life and your routine, and if mum comes and goes, that doesn't change. I'm also really big on traditions, to the point that my children now pay me out about it, because everything I like to label it tradition. So on Friday mornings after the gym, my partner and I will go and get croissants. So every
Yep.
Friday morning we'll bring home croissants and we all have croissants. It's just like a little thing that makes us, it's a
Yeah.
Friday morning connection. It's the end of the week. We're all having a croissant together.
Yeah. I
Family
love that.
dinner we try and do at least once a week. And something we started last year, which my kids actually love, and now they initiated, is when we sit down to dinner, we go through what was the best part of your day, what was the most
Yep.
challenging part of your day, and what are you looking forward to. So we do that every night. So it's just those funny little, weird
Yeah.
rituals, or what I call traditions,
Yep.
that keep us connected and that we can all look forward to. The other thing we do is a Friday night pizza and movie night.
Yep.
It used to be takeaway, but oh my gosh, with the cost of living, we now make our
Yeah.
own pizzas.
Yeah. Pizza
Like
at home.
seriously, how did
But
takeaway get so
sometimes
expensive?
sometimes that's better as well though. Like it's because they get to be involved in it as well.
Well, exactly. And we only started this a couple of months ago. And so now we're all in the kitchen and everyone likes different things. I'm like, that's great.
Yep.
You do you, whatever you want on your pizza. And you end up sort of chatting as you're making your pizzas, and then they choose a movie. Again, it's a really like simple, Friday night tradition, but it's something that we all look forward to. And I think it's a chance at the end of the week to just take a breath and go, okay, have a bit of a reset.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love that idea. I think that's um it's funny how, the things that you're doing now, so your Friday morning croissant, or your Friday night pizza night. It's
Yeah.
funny, as they get older, they'll probably remember that, and they'll probably want to. I think about things that we did as kids that
Yes.
I still do now with my own family.
Yeah, we did too. We did a
Um,
Friday night takeaway and movie night. And I think as well, and you might be finding this, your kids are probably maybe a little young, but as they get to that sort of towards the end of primary school, my
yeah,
son's in year 6 and he's pretty cool now, like they're king of the school. They don't give you too much after school. How was your day?
yeah,
Good. What'd you do? Nothing. Um, but
yeah,
I find on the Friday night, as we're kind of making pizza, the stories come out. Well,
yeah,
actually, I had an argument with Sebem, or I got sent out of class for this, and they just start to talk.
yeah.
So those times and traditions are really invaluable.
Absolutely. I think, yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I think, yeah, they're so important for them as they, as part of their routine, but also as they move through life and how they navigate the world as well. I think it's really, really important for them. And I think as well, we all, as parents, we learn lessons as we go through our journey. And I think that, one of the questions I have for you, Amelia, is that looking back at, from where you are now to, where you've been, and to the point you're at now with your parenting journey, where do you, what do you think your children have gained for themselves from watching you pursue, that a demanding career, I would say, in
Mm.
terms of what it demands of you, and what do you think you have gained from them that maybe shapes you and how you work?
In terms of what they've gained, look, I like to think they've gained resilience, which is
Mm,
something that I've always had, and a really strong work ethic. That's something that I got from my dad. My dad was a Qantas pilot, and he just worked so hard.
yeah,
He was so successful, and he got right to the top of the company. And when he wasn't flying, he was studying, and
yeah,
sitting exams, and the next level and the next level and next level. And he didn't like a news journalist. They don't get Christmas off necessarily. They don't get public
mm,
holidays. So in my childhood, those things like you know weekend days or public holidays weren't always a given with dad. And so my
yeah,
parents did other things to make sure that we made up for them, which we more than did. So I've kind of had that modeling to be able
yeah,
to
yeah,
instill that in my kids as well and show them that as well.
mm,
In terms of what I've gained, I mean, I just, they shape everything that I do. They make me want to be a better person, a better mother, a better journalist, to set a good example. Yeah, I'm learning from them every day, and I'm still learning how to parent. Funnily enough, I've got
yeah.
two children who are just complete opposites. Um,
Yeah, it's funny how they do that. Yeah, I think it's a divine thing that
Well,
because
it's just bizarre. And so my first
yeah,
child, I'm like, oh, I got this. I know how to parent. He's great. He's easy. And then the second child, I was like, I don't know. I still have days where I'm like, I
yeah.
don't know what
What's going
I
on?
don't know how to discipline that. I don't know how to parent that. And now my oldest child like helps me co-parent. It's
Yeah,
an evolving, it's an
yeah,
evolving life lesson as a parent, isn't it?
yeah. Oh, I know. it's funny. So even this morning when I got here, my wife sent me a video. The only way that my youngest would eat his breakfast this morning was if my eldest was the one feeding it to him. So
Oh, yeah. Isn't that
it's just like,
gorgeous?
uh, yeah, it's just those little things that they do teach you new lessons as you go through your journey, I think, and yeah, definitely inspire you to be better, or at least strive to be better as much as
Absolutely.
possible. Um, Amelia, you've been so generous with your time. I just got a couple of final questions for you, and obviously,
You
as
know,
you were navigating your, particularly your European correspondent, Middle Eastern, US correspondent roles, probably the concerns and the pressures that were happening then when your kids were a bit younger were probably a little bit different to what they are right now. So a question for you is, what concerns or pressures are you facing, in your parenting journey right now with your kids, or what it may, what are you seeing right now as the biggest, pressure points for them?
um, That's a good one. I think my kids are right at that transition age, or certainly my oldest, who's finishing primary school this year, where everyone's got an iPhone,
Yep.
everyone's getting an e-bike. So it's finding that balance of letting him be independent. So for example, I got him a smart watch when he turned 12, not a fancy one, just a really simple one that tells the time and that he can only text and call me, basically.
Yep. Yep.
Um, and so, because he's just running his own life now. He just wants to be out in the neighborhood riding his bike. So it's giving him, finding the balance of the independence with also making him realize that he's not actually yet an adult.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, and that he's not getting a phone anytime soon. Um, and I think with my daughter, similar, just at a slightly younger level, they want to break out and do so much and buy so much. And
Mm.
screen time is a real struggle with her, not so much him because he's outdoors all the time, but she wants to
Yep.
be on, what's it called? The Roblox. I hate
Oh,
that.
yeah. Roblox. Yep. Yep.
Oh
Yep.
my God, the devil.
Yep.
Um, so it's battling technology as well. And
Yeah.
anytime I leave her alone with an iPad, she's just watching those YouTube shorts, which are like, poker machines.
Yep.
So
Yeah. The dopamine
and
hits that they give.
yeah, I think so. That's probably my greatest, on a kind of superficial level. And AI is part of that. She was
Yep.
chatting to some chatbot the other day on some game, and I was like, that is not happening.
Yep.
So I think AI is going to be more and more of a challenge, um, for parents.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I think it's actually really refreshing to hear, you say that, because we do get feedback here with what we do. That is such a challenge and a pressure point for parents right now. Is this, I remember, when I was growing up, we were on this precipice of when the internet, came out
Yeah.
and smartphones were just sort of taking off, and Facebook was just starting. Back in that way, it was MySpace. When I remember good old MySpace, but yeah, like things like that. It's changed so much now in terms of YouTube Shorts. You just mentioned Roblox, like games and speaking to chatbots and things like that. It's just a totally different world, and I think parents could become quite overwhelmed, and like
Very
there's a lot of
overwhelming. Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of pressure there in terms of digital well-being and how they stay healthy online as well. And I think yeah, that's going to be a constant challenge moving forward, I think. But before I let you go today as well, just one final question is, you've spoken really openly and candidly with me, and I really appreciate that. And you've mentioned how your former husband as well, and and how he was obviously a big part of their upbringing and still is, but how I think now as well in Australian culture, or there's lots of blended families out there, lots of parents going through co-parenting arrangements, solo parenting as well. And so what I wanted to ask is, how have you navigated that space? How have you navigated solo parenting with a new partner, but also how do you navigate that co-parenting side of things with your former husband as well? Because it's you obviously have a demanding career, and it would be a lot to manage, I can imagine.
Yeah. That's really tricky. And I think anyone who says it's not is either like very lucky or lying. I mean, you know, no one wants to end up divorced. No one wants to split up, families. I think for me, or I should say for us, it's been just always going back to putting the kids first, putting the kids' interests first. When we first moved back to Australia, it was a crazy time because we were splitting up and I just was starting this huge new job, which I'd always wanted. The kids were starting back at new schools. It was just a lot of change for everyone. I think we did really well for a couple of years, then we sort of had, 50-50 with the kids for a while there. My ex-husband, their dad, has since left town. So, they're with me, which, I'm the lucky one. But interestingly, when that happened, my son said to me, he said, oh, it will be, it will be good not to have to move all our stuff and have to shuffle around every week. And that was a point when I realized we're like, it's so much for kids. He had his sacks and his soccer boots and his baseball stuff. And it actually wasn't probably in hindsight in their best interests. So again, you learn as you go. So now they're in one house, they've got all their stuff in one room, they have a really stable life and routine, and they see their dad, on holidays or whenever he comes to town. It is really difficult to do that with the job that I have, but that's a choice, as I've said, and I say it to my kids. If this ever's not working for us, I will go and do something else, which is, an office job or a job where I don't travel. That's fine. I'm just really lucky that I've got an incredible village, and we've spoken about that a little bit today. My partner who to take on someone else's kids is, you have to be a bit of a brave man. And also my mum, and I've got cousins who live in the same suburb as well. Like I've got that village that there's enough people that I can call and say, I've got to go to Perth and, or wherever it is. Could you have the kids tomorrow night or can they walk home to you from school? I'm just really lucky. I feel like I'm not raising my kids on my own. I feel like there's several, loving members of family that are raising them as well. And they're very, very happy and resilient children as a result.
Yeah. I think that part of it is so important to surround yourself with like-minded people that your kids feel safe with. And because parenting can be overwhelming and a lot to manage. And if you're trying to do it all by yourself, it can, you could quite easily implode, I imagine.
Oh, it was a disaster. I nearly did implode last year. The other thing I would say is I've really learned to lean into, other parents. Like there was a time there where I thought I have to do everything myself. I have to pick him up from band and get to my shoot and be in studio. But actually everyone's juggling jobs and kids. So now when I'm home and I'm, free on the Thursday night, I do the footy training carpool. And that means driving like half an hour in the other direction. Like I will spend 3 hours in the car to pick up 3 different boys. I've got 4 12-year-old boys in my car and I love it. Like their conversations are so hilarious. And then I'll watch them train for an hour, then I'll drop them all home because then the next week I can text the dad's group and the parents group and say, hey, I'm out of town or I've got a really late shoot. Can Charlie jump in with you? So helping each other out as parents as well, I think is so underrated because, we're all trying to do everything these days, aren't we?
Yes. No, yeah, absolutely. I look forward to those moments. I remember being one of those children in the car with 4 boys on the way to soccer training. So and
I wouldn't miss it for the world. Like I love doing it, and in another life, sometimes I think wouldn't it be great to be a stay-at-home mum and do the carpooling every day and be that, what my mom was to me, who's still like the best mum of all time. My children and I agree on that. But, in this day and age and with cost of living, like I think, pretty much everyone needs 2 incomes. The reality is that both parents are usually working and everyone's just trying to do their best around that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, Amelia, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for speaking so openly, honestly, candidly with me and with our audience. One final thing before you go, what's on the agenda for you, Amelia, this next couple of months coming forward? I'm sure it's very busy. I'm sure it's packed.
It is. I've got quite a bit of travel. I can't say too much to reveal what the stories are, but I've got some exciting stories on the horizon. The great thing about 60 Minutes is the variety. You can be talking to, having some incredible grieving family open their door to you and, telling you their story and challenging the government or challenging a court system one day and then on a plane to interview Charlie Sheen the next day or, the Prime Minister or whatever it is. There's never a dull week, that's for sure.
Fantastic. Well, 60 Minutes is a staple in our household on a weekend. So I look forward to seeing and reading some of the stories that you have on the horizon. But no, thank you for sharing some of your journey with us here at Uncharted Parenting, and we wish you all the best for you and for your family as you navigate what's next for you guys.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for joining me on this episode of Uncharted Parenting. Remember, you can catch all of your episodes on all of your favorite streaming platforms, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and on Podbean as well. And remember, we want to hear from you guys. So send in your comments, your feedback, all of your questions to podcast@encounteryouth.com.au, and we'll see you in the next episode.